I am here with Bill Schaninger, the Bill Schaninger, I guess Senior Partner Emeritus, consultant, author, speaker, because we are talking about leadership, our ongoing conversation about lessons in leadership. And the gift that keeps on giving in terms of lessons, good and bad, seems to be Congress. This week, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the whole Kevin McCarthy saga, the now former Speaker of the House, and this revolt with these sort of 8 rebels in the party. What do you make of this? Let's just stand back. As you've been watching this, what's gone through your mind? And hello.
Well, hi. Thanks for having me back. I love this. I'll tell you, when you and I were first kicking around on it, what was my first instinct was, well, I'm not sure there's a there. It's a tragedy. It's almost like an epic Greek tragedy, right?
Right.
But I'm not sure there's a there in this context. And then I was kicking it around a little bit at dinner, and I thought, hold on, this is like the best example of the trust equation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In old school, if you pull trust apart, because trust is a super loaded word, right? If you say to somebody, I don't trust you, you might as well, it's like Hatfield McCoy time, right? You're going to war.
Right.
But if you pull it apart, there's a portion of it, and for each person, the element that matters the most is different. One part is credibility. I think you can do your job. If you think about McCarthy, there was at least a fair amount of pundits who questioned whether or not he actually was a good legislator, right? Was he a leader? Did he have the acumen? Was he savvy enough, right? If you think about it wasn't just that, Biden appeared to pull a rabbit out of the hat over the summer. It was that McCarthy didn't have the skill and the acumen, right? That's one. So that's just good old fashioned. Is he credible? The second one, reliable, is say-do ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Now here it would appear
say-do ratio. I don't know say-do ratio. What's that?
Meaning what you say you're going to do is what you do. What percentage of what you say you're going to do?
SAY/D. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So there's a challenge, right? So for many people, you talk a good game. What do you do? Or worse, you're a liar.
So which camp was he? Was he in the overpromise, underdeliver, or you're a liar? You said you do one thing and you did the opposite.
Unfortunately for him, a lot of the second.
Right.
And that was very problematic because he was doing it to multiple constituencies. He did a deal with the Dems and immediately started backing off and trying to force in. It's like, oh no, so it's the person who was in front of him, was the most important person to talk to and make promises to, but you pivot, and then it's the next one, whether or not those had a Venn and could overlap at all. Real problem. But at a time when he would have needed saving, like the Dems could have saved him, he was backing away from the deal he'd just done with them. They're like, why would we do that?
Nancy Pelosi said as much. Yeah,
for sure. And there's been I think a decent amount of analysis and saying, were the Venns ever overlapping enough that he could pull it out? You could argue that a really skilled, let's say LBJ type navigator, the Venns between the extremes of both parties were still close enough that the moderates in both parties actually gave you a big enough base you could almost get anything sensible across, and then it was degrees. And in this case, it's like you would have had to be superhuman to pull this off, and he's not. So then we're running up against the credible and the reliable.
Well, now, was Kevin McCarthy a uniquely bad choice then to come in as Speaker? Because certainly we remember the historic saga of him actually trying to get there in the first place. Was his history such that he was just too complicated a character to be seeking that job?
I'm not certain. I'm sure there are political scientists who will look at this from perspective. I tell you, it's an interesting maybe to say, look at John Boehner. You could argue that Boehner had a similar challenge when you had the rise of the Tea Party. Right? And by that point, he was already, 2 decades past Newt in the 92 group, or 94 group, excuse me. Whenever the party in power is sufficiently weak enough that a fringe in that party can try to hold them hostage, that's challenging already for the leader. But now there's so much acrimony where there's not enough moderates to be centrist anymore. I'm not sure that he was ever going to do it, but for sure, the fact that they didn't call it after 12 votes, after 15 votes, and say, we got to go back, meant, and then he had to give away so much just on rules. And for the House rules to be amended, so much so that he couldn't even have forced something through if he wanted to. When you think about classic role clarity, right? What am I asking you to do? What does good look like? By when? With whom? What can you decide on your own? What do you have to come to me for? What he could decide on his own became very limited because of how much power was given to the House Rules Committee.